Greetings and welcome back to the lab. Backup camera, let's give this a shot and let's jump into this with the stealth lights and trying to get this build going. I'm going to jump around a bit because there's a whole other video which I'll put right up here so you can see the original build, but I'll also kind of give you some details as I go along on what I'm doing. So we've got the one that I started rebuilding, and what remains for this one is to put in a couple of red LEDs and it looks like the resistors. And then this one's going to be a full build. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple of red LEDs. I don't have a whole lot left. I guess I'm going to have to put that on the Amazon wish list. So that, or just go ahead and buy some. But I'm always running out of one LED or another, so whatever I have and whatever I can get in stock helps. Now let's see if I can't get this in. No, I did not fully clear that hole. Maybe I can get this one in. There we go. Turn it over. Grab some solder and an iron. Get this puppy in. Alright. Now, since it's sitting all wonky, we're going to try and fix that. There we go. That's better. That's one. So I'll get the other one in there and we'll come back in a moment. Okay, it hasn't been all that long, and sometimes having extra tools helps. The problem here being I'm trying to push this through, and I've only got two hands. If I put it down, I can't push it through, so I've got this helping hand kind of thing here, which I can lock it in. Well, it doesn't lock in perfectly. I have noticed that, and perhaps I'm just not using it right, but as long as I don't have the resistors in there yet, that helps. So the thing was that since I'm repairing this whole thing, there was solder already in a lot of these holes, and I've tried to clear it out. I spent a bunch of time on that. At this point, I'm just trying to get this done. And so one of the tricks I use is that if I have a leg from a component, and if I can hold the component without it heating up on me, I can push it through while I'm heating it up, and that helps clear the hole while also sending it through. So that's what I'm trying to do with this one. I had one hole that wasn't clear. I managed to get it in, but then it bottoms out when it's sitting on the table. So having it elevated should help. So I can get it to go through a little further, or not. And that is what I am trying to do. Now I'm going to line up the second leg. If I do this right, I can heat it up and push both through at the same time. This is not going to plan here. So, pardon my silence while I concentrate. And that's not helping. So the next option is to take my magnifier with a light and get down closer to the subject so I can see what I'm doing. My vision is not perfect. Wow, why is this fighting me so much? Okay. This may seem counterintuitive, but I'm going to add a little bit of solder, because the old solder, when it dries up, becomes harder to manipulate. The newer solder should allow it to kind of lubricate and go through. If I'm right, I may be burning out this LED. Let's see, are we through? I'm going to try doing it the other direction. I'm going to push from the bottom. I'm going to try and move this so you can see it. Push from the bottom, heat up. They're doing it like this. There we go. Now we're coming through. Okay, now it's like other situations where I'm just trying to get it to settle in place. I can get the soldering iron between the two, push it up. I am going to do a double check. I put so much heat into this that I'm a little worried I've burned out the LED. So I am going to try, let's see, negative, positive. Yeah. See if I can show you. If I can get it the right way around. There you go. The LED does still light, so we're good. I just got to keep pushing and pushing carefully to try and get this through. This is the problem with retrofitting something like this. The next one's going to be a lot fresher holes to stick the LEDs into. There we go. We got that in. Let's reflow the solder a bit, and then we'll get to the resistors, which I got to go grab. So I'll see you in a moment. All right, I got two resistors here, what I've been working with in modifying these. The 120s go for the white LEDs, and the 470s go for the infrared and red LEDs, and there's two of them. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 470s in. That way I can plug this in and give it a test. So I'll meet you on the other side with that. Alright, I got mostly through here. I had to push a couple of them through like I did with the LED. And I don't know if I can really recommend that technique because you really could burn your fingers. I had to hold the resistor by the body and try not to overheat the leg and still get this down here to melt enough. I actually pushed from the other side. And then you got to pull them through with something. I just use a pair of pliers. And if I'm right, they're probably sitting a little bit wonky. Yeah, they're not sitting down perfectly, but they should be electrically connected. Now I'm just going to reflow the solder on those couple, and that should take care of the resistors for the infrared part of the stealth light. Some fresher solder on there, make it a little happier. Get it connected into circuit, and the regulars watchers will notice that this is actually the one where I had to put the bodge wire because of a problem I had. Now that goes back to the original video on the stealth light. At least I think it does. I'm pretty sure I recorded a video at some point where I had to explain that I had to put a bodge wire on it. If I can find that, I'll put the link up here. And it looks like we're pretty much ready to go. So let's see if we can get a 12-volt supply. I have a couple of different options. This one's really kind of janky, but if I've done it right, you'll see a couple of red LEDs, or we'll all see a couple of red LEDs, but you might actually see some light coming from the infrared. There's the red LEDs. And if I cover this up, I should be able to determine if the infrared should be on. Oh, I know. It's because I got this light on. I can't see what I'm doing. Yeah, I can just see the glow. So it's really hard to see the glow of the infrared LEDs, but those two red LEDs really give you an indication if the circuit, there's two circuits here, if the two of them are both functional. So that leaves us with putting in the resistors now for the white. So I'm going to start putting those in. Actually, before I do that, since I've already got the materials out, I'm going to put the resistors and the LED, the red LEDs for the infrared on the new one. So I'll get that, and then I'll come back when I've got the resistors in here for the white LEDs, at least the first couple, so you can see that light up. While I snip these leads, I just wanted to say that I can't demonstrate this particular board yet, even though it's got the resistors and the red LEDs, because I still have to put in all the rest of the infrared LEDs on here. So now I'm going to switch from this one back to the other one and start working on putting in the 120 ohm resistors in all of these locations. So see you on the other side. Alright, I got all the resistors in on this. Let's see if I can power it up. And if this works, it's going to get very bright. So I can actually turn this off. Except that it's harder for me to see what I'm doing now. That should be positive. Let's hope I'm not hooking it up backwards. We'll find out in a moment. There we go. Alright. All done. Yeah, I can see everything is on. Everything is working. I am happy. That takes care of that one. And I'm going to get a couple more little things done. Then we'll be on to the next one. I'm back, and now it's time to continue on with this. And to do that, we're going to need some LEDs. And what I've got here is some of the infrared LEDs that I harvested from, well, as well as a couple of other little things, I guess, that I harvested from the previous one that I just finished working on. Those are going to go in here. I also need to add in some other stuff, but I wanted to mention that I'm going to use some white LEDs that were harvested from a solar, see, this one's in really bad shape, but I just use them now as little containers. One of the solar garden lights, and these are the kind of, how to describe it. It's a 5, I think it's a 5 millimeter. Actually, maybe that's a 3, and it's a short one. It's not as tall as, I can do this, not as tall as the infrared LEDs I'm going to be putting on. So I got a whole bunch of these, and I was trying to think what's the best LEDs to put in, because I'm out of the cold white LEDs that I was using to build these, so I can't exactly match it, but those should be a pretty good match. So I'm going to put the infrared LEDs in. I'm going to use a battery to determine, since these were harvested, they have very short leads. I'm going to use battery to determine whether or not, or what the polarity is on these things. Because with the leads cut, it's not as easy. You can try and look for the little flat spot on the negative side, but you can also just do it this way, where I'm just going to keep flipping it around until I actually see it light up. Actually, if it doesn't light up, that's another problem. So, but anyway, I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through the LEDs I've got here. I've got a few more in this bag that I can use. I'm going to put them in. The other thing I'm going to have to do is use some of my offcuts from, I have this container that I keep all the legs from all of the components, and I just use these as little jumpers. So ultimately what's going to happen here is I'm going to use, I'll just use this as a pointer. For the infrared, I'm going to put one here, I'm going to put a jumper here, another one here, a jumper here. I've got the red LED, jumper, LED, jumper, LED. That way I end up with 5 of them going across. This entire line is in series, so that's 5 LEDs across 12 volts, but the infrared LEDs and the red LEDs, for that matter, take up less voltage than a blue or a white, so that should all work, and that's how I calculated the resistors that I wanted. So let's just go ahead and get some of this done, and I'll come back periodically and show you what it looks like just to verify that it's working. Alright, I've got the jumpers in and the first line of LEDs, so it's time to do a test and make sure this is actually going to work. So I need to hook up a couple of wires, do my janky thing with the, where did I put the, there it is, with the power supply. Not the safest thing in the world, but we're only talking 12 volts. Worst case scenario, I blow this whole thing up, but I've got one more of these boards, because when you order up prototypes, the minimum order is 5, and I knew I was going to need about that much. Well, I figured I was probably going to lose one somewhere along the line, and I've been pretty lucky to be able to recover. So let's see. Plugging in the negative, plugging in the positive. I should have a red light. I do not have a red light. And my positive has come out. You probably saw that before I did. Let me move this out of the way. That'll probably make it easier for you to see. But I also need to unscrew this so I can put that back in. The wonders of a live recording, huh? Things can go wrong, and I honestly prefer that. I don't want to make it look like I'm always successful. There's going to be failures here and there. And then you try to recover from them. You try to learn from them. You try to recover and learn. So let's see if we can do this again. I should have a red light on the top one. I have not finished with the LEDs on the bottom one, so, and this also, the camera may pick this up, may pick up the infrared light too. There we go. We've got the red LED, so that's what I mean. That this is really helping me to determine that that circuit is actually on. Otherwise, I have to stare at these infrared LEDs really closely. I have to turn lights off, whatever. Now I can see that it's working. If I turn this light off, maybe the infrared will show up a little better for the camera. But I'm going to go back to work and get the next one done, and I'll meet you on the other side. Okay, a few more LEDs, and it's time for another test. I can find my power supply. Wrong one. You can see it. I need to organize a little bit better. Here we go. Alright. Move that around. Get the negative in. Now we should have 2 red LEDs. And you might be able to see the infrared. Two red LEDs. We're off and running. Now it's time to start putting in the visible LEDs. Now we've got one row in. Let's try and give it a test, and I'm going to have to figure out some other things, which I'll tell you while I locate. There it is. Okay. I'm not sure I have enough LEDs to do them all the same, so I'm going to have to do the rows differently, but I think I'll at least keep it cold white. Alright, looks like they're all, actually this one looks a little bit warmer. That second one looks a little bit warmer than the rest. I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it'll still work out. Alright, let me get some more LEDs in, and then I'll be right back. Now we have a bottom row. Let's see if I wired it up right, and let's see if I can grab the right one. Let's see, positive, negative, and if I've done it right, okay. Middle ones may not be quite as bright. I ended up putting a different LED in there, and so I'm going to end up putting something else in the middle, but this should generate a fair bit of light. So I'm going to keep going. We'll get one more row going, and we'll be done. And finally, I hope, we've got a middle row. I really had to mix some LEDs to get this all done, but on the other hand, I'm getting rid of some of the LEDs I don't generally use. They seem to be best for lighting, not decoration, if that makes any sense. So, yep, I think we got it. Now I'll have to put them up and we'll have to see what they look like.